There's two articles I want to bring to everyone's attention here regarding property viewings, the property market, certainly in Scotland. Check the differences in your own area. But the Chartered Institute of Housing has got a guide for the rented sector. And in general, like my previous videos, I've been saying that we've got to avoid ever going in a property when there's any tenants there, if even meeting with a landlord, and doing viewings may not be possible in person. However, there's been some dangers with that as well. So the first thing I want to bring your attention to is the advice that's getting sent out is that, we see here, at least 72 hours, let's just say 3 days, should be allowed between the previous tenants moving out and anyone entering the property. This will help reduce the chance of the virus remaining on surfaces. So as I said in my previous video, some of the advice from some governments at one point was that the virus can potentially stay active on surfaces for up to 72 hours. So the advice that that's been given to the rented sector is just saying nobody go in. So that means, for landlords and for agencies, tenant moves out, normally the day they've moved out or the day after they've moved out, you'd have somebody going in, doing an inventory check, checking for doing reports of if it needs cleaning, if it needs maintenance, if it needs upgrades, reports back to the landlord. That usually takes, they'll be in there that day, they'll write up the report, they'll send it to the landlord, they'll also make a report for deductions for the deposit, and then that gets sent out. So that will probably be like another, it's usually a 2, maybe 3 days turnover. But if now you're already saying you're not allowed to go in for 3 days after the tenant's moved out, that's a full week before a landlord even gets a report of what the condition of their property is. And possibly it will be quicker now that there's maybe less properties coming on the market, or maybe longer because there's so many properties coming on the market because tenants are moving out. So it's swings and roundabouts here. We don't quite know how it's going here. But yeah, as I said, a long time between a tenant moving out and somebody going in. So that should apply to photographers as well. I suspect that once somebody's moved out, the advice is I can't go in and do new marketing photos for at least 72 hours. Potentially you have somebody go in and do the inventory check. It needs to be 72 hours until we get somebody to do the maintenance. After they've done the maintenance, 72 hours before somebody dresses the property. After that, 72 hours until I go in and then take photos. So yeah, it's going to lengthen the time that anybody is able to rent out a property. They also talk about ensuring the property is thoroughly cleaned. So even if a property is tidy, it's now saying it needs to be thoroughly cleaned, and that any necessary safety checks have been carried out before the new tenant moves in. Now here's an interesting thing. Here in their advice it says remote viewings. Take a video of the property so that prospective tenants can walk through the property online, reducing the need for viewings in person. So that sounds better. So that's different from a advertising promotional movie, video, the kind of stuff that I've produced for properties for sale usually. That is just showing off the property in its best light. Now we effectively have to do the lower quality, more amateur, but more transparent, potentially, walk-through videos where potentially you as an agent are in the property, or you as a photographer are doing a walkthrough, pointing out everything in the property. And then it says you should not conduct any viewings while the current tenant is still living in the property. Absolutely, that's just what's going to have to happen now. So I can't. So before it'd be a case of a tenant would give their notice a month before they move out. We would put it back onto the market and we would start doing viewings before they even move out. Potentially have a tenant lined up for the week after they've moved out, so that we can get the clean, any maintenance, any setting up of the property, and then new tenants move in just 1 week later. But now it all has to start after the tenants have moved out. Okay, so let's talk about, as photographers or as agents here, ensure where it says remote viewings, it has to do a walkthrough of the property online, reducing the need for viewings in person. It doesn't mean eliminating the need for viewings in person. On another news report is that there are agents now agents are getting warned of consumer complaint risks from virtual viewings. So it's kind of kids like, you can't show anyone around the house, so you've got to do a video of it. But there's a real danger if you do a video of it, because there could be complaints about how you do a video of it. So there needs to be some form of training, some form of, I would say training to make sure that we explain the transparency that's required when doing walkthrough virtual viewings. So it can't just be the advertising marketing video, the one there everything looks great. It's got to be the agent walking through the property. I suspect maybe something like a Zoom call or a FaceTime kind of video where the agent is in the property walking through, and then the person can ask questions while you're there. So a live video, effectively. They can go, what's the view from the windows? Oh, can you show me if there's any cracks around the bath? What's the noise of the floor in the living room? Items like that. So I did a couple of videos of that of the last few properties I shot before we went into lockdown, where I effectively walked through the property telling the basic advice. It was very amateurish, but that's kind of what we need, so that you're not fluffing up the imagery. So I'm walking around and talking about how creaky the floors are here, how creaky the doors might be somewhere. We potentially have to show them the gas hob working, how the windows open, the locks that require. It's not a case of like, look at how nice the living room is, and here's a photo from outside the window looking around the corner. It's got to be more realistic viewing. So what they're saying here is that if you're going to do virtual viewings, you've got to be aware of the CPRs, the Consumer Protection Regulations, or the Consumer Protection from Unfair Trading Regulations, it says up here, when conducting video viewings. So there's video viewings, virtual viewings, there's promotional videos, there's lots of different terms that are suddenly being thrown out there instead of the normal couple of photos and then doing a viewing. And then the property ombudsman is saying it is not advisable for you to accept or recommend a landlord to accept an offer on a property that has not been viewed either by the prospective tenants themselves or by a suitably authorised representative of the prospective tenant. So in other words, you can't say, yeah, you've seen the video of a property, in you come. You've got to say, you've seen the video of the property, do you now want to go see the property? You've got to go see it yourself. And they go, I still can't do it. It's like, well, can you send somebody that can represent you, like your mum and your dad or your business partner or something? Because there could be potential somebody going, I saw the video of it, I saw them walk through it, it looked great. Suddenly they actually accept it, move into the property, and they suddenly realise, oh, wait a minute, the floor's at a wonky angle and there's a massive crack in the bathroom which I never saw, which makes me worried about leak from upstairs, or I don't see the leak patch in the bathroom. That could mean that we've got noisy neighbours. Multiple, things which you might pick up on when you're actually visiting the property, or other things like, oh, here's the stairwell. What's the stairwell like? Oh, I didn't realise it absolutely stinks of bin juice, or suddenly you're going to go, I really don't want to live here because it absolutely stinks because it's right beside a smelly restaurant of some sort, or oh, I didn't realise it's above a nightclub. Things which you would notice if you're just doing a normal viewing. So that's the advice. So there's going to be training required for all agents which are going to be doing their own viewings, their own virtual viewings, and it's something which is going to require so much more extra time if following the advice. The other thing is that if you don't follow the advice, it looks like you could be getting in trouble. I'll find the article here. The first instance of police action against physical viewings. So again, I can put a link to this article here. What it can be is that an agent, was doing a viewing of a property, and it was the neighbour of the property put in the complaint saying, hold on, police, this person's showing people around the house. They may not be leaving the 24 hours, 48 or 72 hours between viewings. That's the other thing you've got to think about. If you've got somebody who want to view it, it's like, oh yeah, you want to view it, it's going to be 3 days until you're allowed to see it because somebody viewed it yes or today. And they're saying, so there's a person showing people around the house, maybe doing it in multiple groups, not potentially following social distancing advice, and potentially getting into trouble with the authorities here. So if you are thinking of going at the moment through with physical viewings, you have to do it where you just let the person in and you are not doing it in a group. You're keeping social distance in some sort. You're also taking away like alcohol rubs wherever the person goes, and making sure that they're not interacting or irritating people in the stairwell of a property or the communal areas of any property here. So it's now becoming a minefield for agents to try and walk with making sure that they can actually rent out a property. So it's not a case of, can't take some photos. It's like agents can't go do the viewings, and if they do the viewings, they're potentially in trouble with the law for breaking social distancing requirements. So yeah, I'll put the links to these articles down below for you to have a little read yourself. And there's comments from people in the industry as well if you have a little read of there. But yeah, it's a whole new world for both landlords, agents, viewing agents, and also anybody wanting to view a property. Yeah, could take you a long time to actually see the property, but you've already seen a video of if the person that did the virtual viewing with you walked around the property and you said, yeah, I want to take it. They say, we can't let you take it until you've physically been there. And they go, okay, I'll go around tomorrow. It's like, we did the video yesterday. It's got to be 3 days until you're allowed to go in. It seems ridiculous, and it seems almost impossible to carry through. So yeah, that's how the current property rental market industry in the UK has massively been affected.